Alright, and what do we have this week? Amazon's AWS breaks, Pokemon gets blasted, Palworld says no to Web3, Bloodlines 2 failed at launch, shocker. All that and more on Old Man Rages at the News for the 27th of October 2025. Before we get into the news, if you like the content, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And what a great story to start off this news week. Amazon servers are crapping themselves. This time it affected platforms like obviously anything that runs on Amazon. Alexa, Snapchat, Fortnite, Epic Stores, amongst others. It would take a long time to, list everything that was affected, since a lot of stuff relies on Amazon's backend. But Amazon's web service dashboard first reported the issue affecting the US East 1 region at 3:11 a.m. Eastern Time, and 3 hours later, the underlying issues have been, quote, fully mitigated. About 12 hours later, Amazon announced that all the Amazon Web Services returned to normal by 6:01 p.m. Eastern Time. Amazon also said the issue originated from, and I quote, within the EC2 internal network, and that any service or feature that rely on US East 1 endpoint were impacted by the outage. Now, cause behind this could be described as a break in the chain in between the AWS hosts and DNS servers that resulted in the websites being up. But unless you know one of the IPs Google uses to route any search in a web browser to, off the top of my head, 74.125.200.190 or other equivalents. There are a lot of them really, so you got a pretty good pick if you know them. You would have a really, quote, good time. And for the two people that couldn't figure it out, you wouldn't be able to access jack shit. If you want more details or just someone who knows how the back end of the IT world works, check out Dave's Garage video on the subject. He is a retired Microsoft engineer, so if you want more in-depth breakdown of what happened, check his video out. I highly recommend it. Moving on, the lead animator for Elder Scrolls Online, Ed Lynch, was found promoting Antifa on his Blue Sky account. The reason why I'm not showing this is because the original tweet got nuked from orbit. Talk about not having the balls to stick by your statement, eh, Ed? Now, Grims put it better than I could, so I'll leave this with what he said. The game industry is full of activists who were nepo hired by other activists. They support terrorist organizations like Antifa and campaign to get popular games changed to reflect their authoritarian worldview. When they started to nepo hire activists, quality at AAA plummeted. There's direct correlation. When you need numbers, you sacrifice on the talent part. The original activists might have been talented, but they don't care anymore. Moving on, Turtle Wild still hasn't given up. You can see that with how much updates this lawsuit is getting. This goes without saying, but I'm not a lawyer and I can't comment on the legal parts of this lawsuit. If I say anything specific on this, take it with a huge grain of salt. If you want to see the docket for yourself, it's gonna be in the sources. And if you want somebody to do a more in-depth legal breakdown, this ain't the place. The thing I want to cover is their open letter to the lizard itself. It starts off with explaining how they are a group of WoW fans who just want to develop stuff for the game they love. Quite literally how every mod starts for every game. They even mention how the WoW modding community is flourishing as more and more tools become available. They also added that Blizzard does not have the framework to allow projects like the WoW and others to operate without legal risks, and ask on behalf of their community to work alongside the fan communities to create way for projects to remain lawful. They go on to show how other companies allow their fans to create their own fan experience, such as Rockstar Games with 5M, Bethesda with Skyrim, Valve with the Source Engine, and so on, and continue to explain why it matters to Blizzard. They wrote, and I quote, "A license framework for fan-run services would extend World of Warcraft's active audience by bringing back players who have drifted away from the official game in search of niche experiences that mainstream releases can't accommodate." Community crafted mods fill those gaps, offering gameplay that appeals to smaller, passionate audience. This not only keeps the overall player base large and more diverse, but also gives Blizzard a source of successful concept that can be identified and integrated into future official content. And frankly speaking, it's, well, not hard for Blizzard to do. Then again, they might have some copyright things they need to iron out, considering they have the Warcraft license on lockdown. Then again, take this part with a grain of salt since, again, as I mentioned above, not a lawyer. But then again, if they make this work, that will allow them to make sure that predatory servers don't exist. You know, the kinds that leave a bad impression and allow actual creative ideas to thrive. You know, I mean, think Ascension WoW with their systems, though then again, yeah. Anyways, hell, if the idea is so amazing, they could even integrate it into the base game. But then again, we all know what their integration will be in this day and age. A cinematic using in-game models from Wrath of the Lich King holds better than something that was made within the last couple of years. Oh, Blizzard. I mean, kind of thinking about it, they could even set up where a portion of the revenue from these private servers could go to them as for like a tax. You know, you want to use our IP, you have to pay this portion of, like, you know, your income, assuming that at least for server infrastructure, since most of these servers do need something on the back end to run, so, you know. And not to mention, it's going to give them some brownie points with the community, but yeah. Ultimately, as far as I'm aware, nothing came of that letter, and most likely Blizzard are not even going to look at it at this angle. Moving on, some people saw this coming. Some people are too high to like what's coming. But Pokemon Legends ZA is absolutely awful. I don't need to tell you this, but their previous game was a telltale sign of the company using its fanbase as toilet paper. But as you can see, critics love slop and will continue to love slop no matter what. They will never touch a fun game, and that's easily proven just by looking at Schedule 1. It still hasn't gotten enough reviews in order to get a score. Hell, I agree with Pirate Nation. Who wrote this abysmal dialogue? At least they didn't talk about Vaporeon. Unless that's reserved for the next game. In which case, oh boy. Looking on the bright side, the budget for this game was so small that they only need to sell like, what, 200,000 units in order to break even? And don't get me wrong, $13 million is still a lot, but for that amount of money, you could have made a game that doesn't look like it's from the PS1 era. Hell, even Screen Rant is saying that. The game is getting too much credit. I mean, Clear Obscure had at most a $30 million budget and they did an amazing game. It just shows that Nintendo doesn't really care about the quality of the Pokemon games anymore. And if that doesn't convince you, I mean, Battlefield 6 is over here with an estimate budget that exceeds, what, $400 million? And it shows that, well, one, games are expensive, and two, they need time and care in order to make them good. I still have my personal gripes with kernel level anti-cheat on PC, but I'm gonna call it, at least the game looks good. And not to be left out, critics are roasting the game, calling it bland, uninspired visuals that lack the character, charm, and style of the older Pokemon titles. Nor is it the lifeless environment that feature a smattering of motionless NPCs, shops lacking interiors, and copy-pasted buildings with JPEG windows. They even say that one of the central innovations is just a watered-down version of Xenoblade Chronicles Combat. And yes, while the game's combat is good, it's not DMC level. And if Pokemon games really had a watered-down version of Xenoblade's combat, then it ain't good, chief. Hell, one of their segments even says that the game needs more time, and apparently To top it all off, Shigeru Miyamoto says that Nintendo's new fascination is with movies because, and I quote, ultimately what people remember are the IPs. They also added another quote, games become obsolete when new versions came out, but that's incredibly sad. And you would think this is why Pokemon Legends ZA failed miserably, but that's not the full story. Originally, news articles ran with this quote that came from Kyodo News, but that's not even a correct translation. It actually came from a year-old post from a Japanese website called Nintendo DreamWorks, where the full quote is, ultimately, what people remember are the IPs. Games become obsolete when new versions come out, but that's incredibly sad. We started video production partly because of that sadness, seeing our creations become playable only on virtual consoles. If you even read the original question, it's all about the Nintendo Museum and not about movies. Can you imagine that? Now, I wanted to get the direct translation from the website, but it seems Google Translate is yet again unreliable at translating anything. Or I might have done something that broke it, but at this point, I don't know. Now, I can't speak or even read Japanese to save my life, so, well, I'll trust that. If somebody has the knowledge, you can pop over to their website and get that part out yourself. And looking at it, you can also see that there is some validation to this because Erisu, the person who brought this up, was quote tweeting a deleted post. So, well, you know, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. At the end of the day, Nintendo, the Pokemon game company, and Game Freak are more concerned with milking their audience and punching down smaller game devs instead of making good products. And nobody can dispute that. And now for the other side of the coin. Palworld just got themselves an easy dub because they said if you're big on AI stuff or your game is Web3 or uses NFTs, we're not the right partner. This was said in an interview with Game Developer, where John Buckley, a communications director and publishing manager, said, people are going to say I'm lying, but these are just hard facts. We don't believe in it. We're very upfront about it. If you're big on AI stuff, or your game is Web3 or uses NFTs, there are a lot of publishers out there, but we're not the right partner for that. He even mentioned how in 2 to 3 years we'll enter an era of low-quality AI slop games, and even mentioned how you can already see with Steam, even though Steam is good at keeping them out for now. Nintendo could learn a thing or two from them considering what the new Pokemon game looks like. Well, I'll be blunt, it looked like it was put together by AI that had access to a PS1 and was sold. It needs to make a game that would work on Nintendo Switch. Let's be real. Not to mention the dialogue. Jeez. Moving on, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 could not save itself. Not even from the journalists by the looks of things. Imagine that. With it only having a score of 64 on Metacritic and a user score of 4.3, it ain't looking good for the game. Even on Steam, it's the mixed ratio. The Steam DB numbers are not looking good either, from a peak of 27k going down to 5.7. That's over the launch weekend, mind you. Imagine that. The game flopped so hard, even though it had extremely good potential. All because of the development hell it went through. Hell, even the reviews are saying that the RPG doesn't have RPG elements. Now, I'm not sure who decided to put the RPG tag on the game on Steam, but, you know, looking at the reviews, it doesn't look like it has any RPG elements in it. Moving on, the failure called Project Ethos is back at it again. Yes, I'm calling it a failure because when IGN released their first hands-on impression, the video got an estimated 9k dislikes. Now, the studio hired a former Respawn executive to lead the project, that person being Ben Brickman, and a memo to the staff that Variety obtained from 2K president David Ishmaeler called community feedback to the game, quote, enlightening. The letter stated, it affirmed the promise of a roguelike shooter, but told us we still had work to do. It uncovered the need for a more distinct identity. It's been inspiring to see how far you've come. You took the feedback to heart and reimagined Project Ethos with a renewed vision, one that's poised to deliver on its promise to our players. I wonder how that will go. He also added, our confidence in Project Ethos grows every day. To further the incredible progress you've made, I'm excited to welcome Ben Brickman as the new studio head of 31st Union. After several months of conversations, Ben officially joins us on Monday the 20th of October. Remember, folks, IGN's video got disliked heavily and they still believe that if they just find their identity, they'll succeed. Yeah, this game's cooked. Moving on, Massive Entertainment, a Ubisoft studio, is laying off staff. That's quite a lot of layoffs Ubisoft employees are going through this year. They tried to obfuscate it by calling it, and I quote, ongoing evolution and, quote, long-term planning, even adding additionally, quote, realigned our team, instead of actually saying how it is. If they're to be believed, they're at least providing a voluntary career transition program to only eligible team members that contains financial and career assistance. But if I were them, I would get ready to put the fries in the bag. And I haven't done this in a while, so let's check the hidden replies, shall we? And yes, they hit some of them. Most of them are just go woke, go broke, or some sort of variation. You don't say! Just as things couldn't get worse for Ubisoft, they also lost the second director for the Splinter Cell remake. According to Tech4Gamers, they found a job listing for the position of the game director for the Splinter Cell remake, and even the website themselves mentioned that developers leaving before a project is complete is almost always a troubling sign. Yeah. Ubisoft, stop fighting it. Please, I don't want to deal with you anymore. And since misery likes good company, Thegamer is also laying off staff. This news came last Wednesday when several former members of the site's editorial team took to social media to announce they have been laid off. One of them is this person right here, who believes that Thegamer staff members were incredibly talented and hardworking. About that, in reality, I want whatever that guy's having. It sounds like an amazing trip down Schizo Lane. Whatever they had was also passed around the office, it seems, cause another individual also believes Thegamer staff had talented people. Yeah, about that, buddy. Here, let me show you why I feel no empathy towards these people. Master of the TDS compiled the articles that rub the gamers the wrong way. We have the Sora Doesn't Understand Love, which I personally covered. They wrote an article believing that Legend of Zelda has always been queer, and to wrap up things nicely, they wanted to put Aloy's queerness front and center because apparently that's more important than a good game. I hope you understand now why I absolutely don't care about these people getting fired. Yeah, sure, put ideology in front of the game's mechanics and it actually playing properly. Yeah, about that, buddy. And if everything's to be believed, that's more than 1,200 games journalists, and I'm using the word journalists loosely here, have lost their jobs in the last 2 years. Keep in mind, if we include amateurs, part-timers, and freelancers, the number goes more along the lines of 4,000. But then again, the industry is obviously changing, and if people who keep posting their slop are the ones going out, then we might actually get some progress, and maybe some good articles. Yeah, I know, wishful thinking, but a man can dream, can't he? Moving on, Remedy Entertainment CEO Pero Virtala stepped down 2 weeks after the company issued a profit warning due to weak sales of FBC Firebreak. As I like to say, you get what you deserve. You can even see the poor sales with the game being up next and the game having less than 20 players. To top it off, at best play tracker says about 75,000 people own the game, meaning at most the game made roughly 210,000 euros. That's all after PlayStation's cut. If we assume that all of the 1992 players on Steam didn't issue a refund, they should have earned roughly 55,000 euros. After Valve's cut, of course, bringing this whole thing to a total of 265,000 euros, roughly. Now, this is rough math with a lot of speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. The reason why I'm doing this is to give you a rough idea of what's happening, as they have a budget of 30 million euros. Yes, they are very far off from breaking even, let alone making profit on the game. Make of that what you will. Moving on. Counter-Strike 2's latest update wiped $1 billion from the skin market cap because of the new trade-up for knives and gloves. The way they did that is by updating the game and allowing people to trade 5 covert quality items for a knife or a glove, which resulted in the market crashing. Even in a later post from Dexerto, they mentioned how it dropped from 6 billion to 3 billion. So, yeah, it tanked. The worst part of all this is that there are reports of people alt-F4ing from real life because of it, with a Twitter user saying that at least 15 people in China took their lives because of the skin update. I mean, haven't these guys paid attention to the crypto market and only what happens here? It's a volatile market, so, you know. Look, mommy, look, the bootleg crypto market crashed. Oh no. Anyways, I did not want to talk about this franchise anymore, but holy fuck, it wriggled its ugly ass around yet again. This time Push Square saying Ghost of Yotei's DLC could be down to players. Let me tell you before I even go on to the article that no amount of DLC will save this dumpster fire of a game. The only solution is putting the game down for good and pretending it never existed. Anyways, speaking to Game Informer via Eurogamer, lead developers Jason Connell and Ian Ryan suggest that Iki Island DLC for Ghost of Tsushima came about as a result of fans wanting to see more of Jin's story. They're taking the same approach as they did for the game, and if people want more Ghost of Yotei, they will make sure, and assuming Sony greenlights this thing, because we still haven't gotten official numbers. Hell, they can only dream of winning Game of the Year awards like how Clear Obscure did with Gamescom Asia. Ha! Suck it, Ghost of Yotei! Also, don't get me started on Kotaku's article about the game selling well, because, well, they're using very skewed charts to provide that it, quote, sold well. I mean, this chart here is the sales data for September 2025 for the US only. Oh boy, fudging numbers I see. Yes, only the land of the free and guns is present in the chart. Nothing else was accounted for. The rest of the world doesn't exist according to Kotaku apparently. Not only that, but it also ranked the game without showing numbers. Red flag, ahoy. For all I know, Borderlands 4 could be at the top with, what, 50 units sold? I don't know, I'm pulling numbers out of my ass because they didn't show any. And it doesn't tell the full story, needless to say. The funnier part of this, at least, is they included Donkey Kong Bonanza, and yet digital sales on Nintendo's platforms were not included. Yeah. Alright, Kotaku, we had a good laugh. I think it's time for you to also visit the layoff machine. Just how much can you try skewing the numbers in your perspective, you goddamn baboons? Please have the balls say it sucked, it didn't fail, we don't know numbers. Oh, brother. Moving on. Physical copies of Outer Worlds 2, well, are not actually physical copies. And yet again, This is another instance of corporations trying to kill physical media. The disk itself only contains 1.32 gigabytes of data, and you still need to connect to the internet to download the game. At the very least, you don't need the internet to play it. As far as we know, who knows? You might actually be greeted with, you need an internet connection to play a single player game experience at launch. But then again, that's just me speculating. Take this whole shit with a grain of salt. The Game Informer also got an interview with the developers. They began with explaining how Outer Worlds 2 is highlighting the pitfalls of capitalistic ideas and a little bit of the story. However, they missed an opportunity here. They mentioned that you can get the game earlier if you bought the more expensive version of the game, but didn't take a jab or make a joke about capitalistic greed. Mind you, the game costs 70 euros or $70 because currency conversion is a thing that they decided to ignore, and the premium edition is 100. Yeah, pretty much disappointing. Nothing worth talking about in the interview. Well, either thankfully or sadly, but I still wonder how the physical release will affect the game's sales. That is, if you can call that thing a physical release. Come on, I've seen physical releases on a floppy disk that made more sense than this shit. And lastly, we have everybody's favorite consultancy firm, Sweet Baby Inc., crawling out of the shadows yet again. Its website is back online, and holy shit, I forgot how vomit-inducing it is. Apparently, they gutted out the tabs about projects, approach, and outreach that were visible in 2024. And not only that, but they don't offer newsletters anymore. Run, little roach, run. We got the flashlight on ya. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And just to remind people, they boasted about providing a multitude of perspectives and bringing diverse voices to solve diverse problems that never existed in the first place. They also boasted how they dedicated themselves to fostering new talents in the gaming industry in their outreach page while providing resources. Okay. How are the games doing, by the way, that these new talents worked on? Oh yeah, boycotted up the wazoo and not breaking even. They even believe that they can get the industry to, quote, where it needs to be. And for anybody who doesn't speak Sweet Baby Inc. or general activism, they want to mold the industry in their shape, fostering an audience that always demands but never delivers. That's quick to ignore any criticism and mostly incompetent. Makes you wonder how anyone took these people seriously in the first place. Oh, brother. But anyway, that's all for this week. If you like the content, hit the like and subscribe buttons, share the video, and I'll speak to you next time.